The first thing that hit me when I stepped off the shuttle wasn't the recycled air or the faint hum of the ship's core. It was a bright, shimmering blur of motion rocketing straight toward me like a cleaning-obsessed missile. I didn't even get to finish inhaling before something tall, warm, and very determined slammed into my chest and pinned me against the corridor wall with all the gentleness of a freight train. I let out a sound that I refused to categorize as a squeak, but it absolutely wasn't dignified. 4 hands, began patting, prodding, and rubbing at me with alarming speed, and a sudden spray of cold foam shot across my neck. "Hold still," the alien janitor commanded, and I froze instinctively because something about her tone said resisting would be pointless. Her species had voices that were strangely melodic even when they were barking orders, and the resonance vibrated through my sternum. She pressed close enough that I could smell whatever citrus metal scent her skin gave off, and one of her arms curled around my shoulders like a clamp. The other 3 busied themselves scrubbing at my neck with a rough sponge that might have doubled as industrial sandpaper. I opened my mouth to ask what the hell was happening, but foam filled my mouth instead because she was not paying attention to where she aimed that thing. I sputtered, gagged, wiped my lips, and tried again. Why are you? Grease smudge detected, she announced with the seriousness of someone reporting a reactor breach. Human skin secretion level, hazardous. Purity threat moderate. Another blast of foam hit me, this one in my hair. Sanitary protocol engaged. That was the moment I realized my transfer assignment to this alien battlecruiser might be more chaotic than the paperwork suggested. She kept scrubbing, muttering alien scientific jargon under her breath, each term sounding increasingly dire. Something about microorganism colonies and dermal flake shedding. She held my chin with surprising gentleness for someone trying to exfoliate me into the next life cycle and tilted my head to the side so she could inspect the other half of my neck. I could feel the eyes of at least 10 other crew members on us. A squad of armored guards paused mid-stride, staring in stiff horror. A shorter alien technician dropped a tablet. Someone coughed awkwardly. No one intervened. Apparently, the towering janitor was a force of nature here, accepted, feared, and obeyed. I tried to edge away, but she made a low clicking noise and pulled me right back into position. Do not resist sanitation procedures. Human anatomy is notoriously fragile. Your external bacterial load is unacceptable for this environment. My brain supplied the only explanation that made sense in the moment. She was flirting. A very aggressive, extremely hands-on version of flirting, but still. I'd met aliens before, some of them had strange courtship rituals. Maybe her species expressed interest through hyper-focused grooming? Maybe this was her version of batting eyelashes and asking for a drink? You know, I managed between scrubbing passes. If you wanted to get close, you could have just said hello. She froze like someone had pressed pause on a hologram. All 4 hands stopped mid-motion. Her skin, shimmery and opalescent, brightened noticeably, swirling with brighter light. I had no idea if that signified embarrassment, anger, or a spontaneous reaction to my stupidity, but she definitely reacted. Clarification, she finally said. You interpret sanitation enforcement as relational overture? Okay, maybe she wasn't flirting. Maybe I was an idiot with soap in my ear. I lifted a hand, gently pushed the scrubbing sponge away from my eyeball, and tried again. I just meant, this is a lot of touching for a first meeting. She blinked, at least I think it was a blink, and scanned me with a handheld device. Contact is necessary. Human epidermis is unstable. You are leaking moisture. I stared at her. You mean sweat? Leaking, she repeated firmly, as though that settled the debate. Her scanner beeped urgently. Additional leaking detected. Chest area. Back area. Underarm area. Emergency protocol escalation. No escalation! I yelped, but it was too late. She swooped in with a towel the size of a parachute and started wiping me down with clinical precision. I swore I saw my life flash before my eyes. If I'd known joining this ship meant being assaulted by a sanitation officer on day 1, I might have packed extra deodorant, or body armor. Someone down the corridor cleared their throat and called out, "Janitor! You're exceeding standard protocol." She snapped her head in their direction with fierce authority. "Human is compromised. He requires full surface decontamination." Her voice carried. Several aliens winced. A few hid behind doorframes. I didn't know whether to be flattered or mortified. She turned back to me, lowering her voice, barely. "You will adjust to my procedures. Humans require constant grooming." She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing as she inspected my ear. "Excess earwax detected. Please," I begged. "Not the Q-tip equivalent. I'm begging you." Unexpectedly, she paused. Her arms lowered. She tilted her head, studying me with curiosity rather than alarm. "Your vocal tone indicates distress. I may have over-applied force parameters. That's one way to phrase it," I muttered, peeling foam off my sleeve. Her skin shimmered brighter again, possibly a blush. She stepped back slightly, though one hand hovered near my shoulder like she was fighting the urge to sanitize me again. "I apologize," she said stiffly. "I am responsible for all contamination within this quadrant. You produced immediate contamination." "Yeah," I said, half laughing despite myself. "Humans are good at that." She hesitated, glancing at the marks she left on my uniform. Did I harm you?" The sudden shift from scrub-happy whirlwind to uncertain giant was disarming. I straightened, brushed off some foam, and forced a smile. "No. Just startled." "You're very enthusiastic." Her shimmer intensified. She looked away briefly. "Enthusiasm is not permitted. I will adjust." But she didn't move far. If anything, she hovered closer, as if proximity itself helped her monitor my contamination levels. I should have been annoyed. Instead, I found myself oddly flattered. Being tackled, scrubbed, and examined wasn't exactly how I imagined meeting new crew, but there was something earnest in how seriously she took her job. And something weirdly sweet in the way she hovered, as if waiting for permission or direction. "All right," I said finally, lowering my voice so the onlookers couldn't hear. "We can maybe work out a gentler system next time." She looked stunned. "You will allow future sanitation?" "If it means not getting tackled again, yes." Her eyes widened, all four arms drawing close to her chest. She sparkled brighter than before, and for a moment she almost seemed shy. "Acknowledged. I will develop new, softer methods." "Great." I had no idea what that meant, but her tone suggested she was already planning something complicated, and probably messy. The worst part? I wasn't sure I minded. Every attempt I made to walk anywhere on that ship turned into an ambush. I couldn't even get a cup of rehydrated coffee without a large shadow falling across my back, followed by the soft but ominous whirring of a sanitation scanner. I would turn slowly, very slowly, only to find her standing there, towering over me with her forearms folded like a disappointed teacher waiting for me to admit I forgot my homework. The moment I made eye contact, the scanner beeped, and her expression shifted into grim duty mode. "Foreign particle detected." "It's lint," I insisted. "Unacceptable." Before I could remind her that lint did not, in fact, constitute biological warfare, she launched into wiping my collar with such intense focus that I wondered if her species could stare a hole through fabric. Crew members stepped aside automatically as she guided me down the corridor like I was some feral creature needing constant supervision. One of her hands hovered behind me, not quite touching but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from her palm. It was protective, overbearing, and strangely comforting. She stopped me every 10 meters. Once because I breathed too heavily near a ventilation grate. Another time because she claimed my dermal output looked unstable and dabbed my forehead with a towel she had apparently been carrying folded inside her belt like a holstered weapon. "You are leaking again," she said with grave concern. "Humans do that. It's sweating." "Leaking," she corrected firmly. I tried to explain human biology. She didn't buy any of it. Sweat was contamination. Skin shedding was contamination. Even the way I blinked apparently produced microscopic eye moisture, which she categorized as yet another contamination risk. I blink all the time. I tried, desperate. She nodded slowly. Yes. Excessively. I threw my hands up. It's called being alive. She tilted her head. Fascinating. The worst part was that she seemed genuinely enthralled by observing me. Like I was a mysterious animal that might do something interesting if she watched long enough. I caught her staring at my hands often, watching the way fingers bend and flex. Once she even asked if humans were born with detachable digits, and I had to fight very hard not to laugh in her face because she was so serious about it. Communication felt impossible. So I tried something stupid. I suggested we talk. Conversation. Words. The exact opposite of scrubbing. She didn't understand why. Her species rarely used casual conversation. They communicated through efficient statements, usually related to tasks. She stood perfectly still when I tried to explain it, her eyes fixed on me like she was learning a new language. Which, to be fair, she was. So humans bond, she repeated slowly, by emitting unnecessary vocalizations at each other. That's called talking. They serve no operational value? I shrugged. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's normal. She considered this with the intensity of someone analyzing an unknown toxin. Show me. That should have been my warning. I started talking about Earth. Sunlight. Rain. Busy streets. Music. All the little things humans find comforting. She watched every movement of my mouth and eyes, absorbing it with laser focus. But the whole time, her hands twitched like she was itching to clean something. I finally asked what was wrong. I detect salt on your skin, she replied. From leaking. My sweat. Yes. You're leaking salt. I groaned into my palms. But I also couldn't help noticing that for all her obsessive cleaning, she was trying. She was listening. She wanted to understand me. That meant something. Later, I caught her huddled in the maintenance bay with a small hollow screen. When I got closer, I realized she was watching old human romance videos. Terrible ones. Ones with way too much soft lighting and dramatic saxophone music. And bubble baths. So many bubble baths. Two humans pouring foam over each other and laughing like maniacs. She took notes. Actual notes. At one point she rewound a scene where a couple kissed in a bath and scribbled fiercely. Human bonding, aquatic grooming. Must prepare water basin. My heart sank. No. No, please don't prepare anything. She ignored me and kept watching, completely engrossed. When she looked up again, her eyes sparkled with triumphant discovery. I understand now. No. You don't. She stepped closer, all four hands poised with alarming purpose. You require aquatic grooming to complete intimacy bonding rituals. I never said intimacy. Or bonding. Or grooming. I will begin training. I backed away until I hit a crate. Training? She nodded earnestly. Humans prefer gentle full-body cleansing during emotional connection. This is consistent across the archival footage. That's because those were movies. She blinked. I do not understand. I groaned. She took that as confusion and quickly pulled out her handheld scanner again. It beeped in panic mode. She glared at it like it personally offended her. Then she glared at me. You are leaking anxiety. My heart is beating fast because you're talking about bathing me. Acknowledged. I will proceed slowly. That is not what I... Too late. She grabbed a towel and a bottle of something scented like alien citrus and stepped closer with the determined look of someone preparing for a sacred ritual. She reached up and, despite my protests, attempted to shampoo my hair. In the middle of the hallway. Without warning. Or permission. I flailed. She held me steady. The crew watched in stunned fascination. Someone whispered bets about whether I'd survive the encounter. She worked her fingers through my scalp with surprising gentleness. Way gentler than her earlier assault. Almost soft. And the weird part? It felt nice. Embarrassing as hell, but nice. When she finished, she stepped back proudly as if she'd completed some critical diplomatic task. You are now partially groomed. That's not how human relationships work. She tilted her head. But you did not resist. And your vocalizations indicated positive response. I wanted to deny it. I wanted to stay angry. But my head tingled pleasantly, and I couldn't hide it fast enough. Her eyes widened as she observed my reaction, and her skin glowed brighter with what I was starting to recognize as something close to delight. She considered this a victory, and I had officially lost control of the situation. After the training session, she disappeared. Just vanished. One moment she was looming over me with her towering presence and foaming cleanser, the next she wasn't there, and I found myself staring at the corridor ceiling like a fool, wondering if she'd been vaporized in a sudden jump across the deck. I expected panic, chaos, maybe a reprimand from the ship's security, but nothing happened. No alerts, no beeping, just silence. For once, I could breathe without a citrus metal scent clouding my nostrils. And for once, I didn't have 4 arms hovering somewhere around my shoulders, inspecting me like I was a rare pet in a very hazardous lab. It was unnerving. I realized that her absence made me realize how much I had become accustomed to it. The constant hovering, the obsessive scanning, the occasional mid-mission tackle for a smudge I didn't even notice, all of it had become part of my day. Part of my strangely comforting, terrifying new normal. And now that she was gone, I felt a little lonely. I wandered through the corridors, checking the supply rooms, the maintenance bays, even the hangar, half expecting to find her lurking behind a fuel canister, ready to scrub me again. Nothing. The crew gave me sympathetic glances, which I didn't understand until someone muttered under their breath, "He's missing her." I blinked at them. "I am not missing anyone," I said, but my chest tightened and I realized I was lying to myself in a very big way. Later, I found her in the hydroponics bay, crouched beside a tank of floating alien vegetables, scribbling on a datapad with intense concentration. She didn't notice me at first, completely absorbed in whatever calculations or notes she was making. When she did look up, her eyes glowed faintly, almost timidly, and she straightened slowly, almost as if she was trying to appear neutral. "You have returned," she stated. "Yes," I said, trying to sound casual. I thought I should check in." Her gaze flicked down to my uniform. "No additional contaminants detected since my absence." "Good. You maintain proper hygiene independently?" I swallowed. "Yeah, sure." She seemed to consider that a compliment. "Curious," she said softly. "Your epidermis appears relaxed. Not in distress." I realized she was watching me closely, like she was trying to gauge my emotional state from subtle cues. Her species didn't normally care about subtlety. They were usually blunt instruments of efficiency, but now she was careful, tentative. I decided to take the risk. "I miss you," I admitted quietly, surprising myself. She froze. Her forearms stiffened at her sides. Her skin shimmered brighter and warmer than it had before, and I thought I saw a faint ripple of color that might have been embarrassment. Or curiosity. Or both. "You missed me?" she asked, voice a little too high, almost faltering. "Yes," I said. "Even though you, well, scrubbed me like a deck plate." Her mouth opened slightly, then closed. She blinked at me, slowly. "You valued my attention?" I nodded. "Yeah. I did. Even if it was excessive." Her eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "Excessive, but desired." Noted. I could feel the tension in the air between us, strange and electric. For the first time, she wasn't scrutinizing me for contaminants. She wasn't measuring moisture levels or checking for grease smudges. She was just staring at me. Trying to understand me. Trying to interpret something about human emotion she had never experienced. "I studied humans," she said after a long pause. "Old archives. Historical, Recreational footage. You. I raised a brow. Me? Yes. To understand proper, relational hygiene practices. I choked on my own laugh. Wait, you watched old human romance videos? The cheesy ones with bubble baths and dramatic music? Her skin flared brighter again. Yes. To improve interaction efficiency. I thought it would be beneficial to groom according to emotional standards. Oh no, I groaned. You thought all humans want bubble baths together? Yes. You appear to enjoy the process, she said, like I had confirmed some universal law of biology. I rubbed my face. I enjoy talking. Not being scrubbed by a 6-foot-tall alien who thinks I'm a rolling petri dish. Her glowing eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, like she was taking my words seriously. Then my method requires adjustment, she said quietly. But my intent was to impress. I blinked. Impress? With cleaning me? Yes, she admitted. I do not know other methods. Emotional bonding through hygiene is culturally ingrained. I realized suddenly that she had misread every human signal she had ever interpreted. Every flustered reaction, every awkward squirm, every complaint, it was all read as positive feedback. And now, here she was, confiding in me, acknowledging her complete misunderstanding, and feeling vulnerable about it. I stepped closer. Tentatively. Kivara, you don't have to scrub me to impress me. Her forearms twitched at her sides. She blinked, then tilted her head. You are not offended? No, I said softly. I appreciate that you care. I just care about you too. And I like you, even if your methods are terrifying. Her eyes widened, the soft shimmer pulsing like a heartbeat. She took a cautious step closer. You like me? Yes, I admitted, heart pounding in a way that was probably suspiciously audible. Even though you're a little obsessive about hygiene. She tilted her head and considered this. Then, with the kind of decisive movement only a four-armed, towering alien can manage, she leaned forward and pressed her forehead lightly to mine, a gesture of trust and closeness in her culture. I felt her warmth, her sincerity, and for the first time, the absurdity of our situation melted into something profoundly intimate. I will adjust my methods, she whispered. If it pleases you, I will continue, but more appropriately. I smiled, feeling something new and oddly comforting bubble in my chest. That sounds perfect. She exhaled, a sound that vibrated against me, and stayed close, our foreheads still touching. It wasn't scrubbing, it wasn't excessive hygiene, it wasn't ridiculous or panic-inducing. It was her. And for the first time, I realized that I didn't just miss her attention. I missed her. The alarm blared, throwing the entire deck into chaos. I stumbled over cables and scattered tools, trying to keep my balance as the ship lurched violently. Sparks flew from a ruptured conduit, smoke hissed from somewhere near the engine core, and the sound of panicked aliens filled the corridors. I barely had time to register what happened when she appeared. Kivara, in full sanitation guardian mode, bolted toward me like a comet, forearms flaring, eyes glowing brighter than I had ever seen. Her footsteps shook the floor, her presence a tidal wave of determination, and before I could react, she scooped me up effortlessly, holding me close against her chest as if shielding me from the storm. You are compromised, she barked over the chaos, spraying a fine mist from one of her vials over me as she maneuvered through the debris. Human requires immediate decontamination. Wait! I yelled, trying to push at her shoulders, but she held me too firmly. I'm fine. I'm just caught in the smoke. She ignored me entirely, checking my uniform with meticulous attention, brushing dust off my collar, and inspecting my hair for soot. She muttered something under her breath that sounded suspiciously like a formula for maximum cleanliness under crisis conditions. I wanted to argue, to protest, but the absurdity of being carried like a fragile doll by a giant sparkling alien while the ship shook around us made my words stick in my throat. Once she had me in a relative safe zone, she set me down gently but kept her hands hovering near me, scanning me repeatedly. Her glowing eyes softened as she looked at me, and for the first time, I saw more than the hyper-dedicated janitor. I saw someone who cared, who had gone completely against protocol just to keep me safe. My chest tightened with a weird mix of awe and embarrassment, and I realized I was smiling. "You could have let me handle this myself," I said breathlessly, brushing soot from my hair. Her gaze narrowed, one arm reaching toward me reflexively. "You would have remained contaminated. That is unacceptable." I took a step closer, ignoring the fine mist still settling around me. "Kivara, you don't have to scrub me to show you care." Her skin pulsed brightly, faster this time, like a strobe. She tilted her head, as if analyzing my words with every fiber of her being. "Then, why do you permit my presence?" she asked cautiously. I am unsure of the proper human response. I exhaled slowly, gathering courage. "Because I want you here. Not because I'm dirty. Not because you're a janitor. Because you." Her eyes widened, and for a moment she froze, the soft hum of the ventilation barely audible over her rapid pulsing glow. Then, slowly, she reached out, carefully, almost shyly, and placed her hand on my shoulder. The warmth radiating from her made the hairs on my arms stand on end. "You desire my proximity for emotional reasons?" "Yes," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Because I like you. Because I enjoy being near you. Not because of any cleanliness protocol." Her arms twitched nervously, one hovering near my arm, another flexing as if fighting against instinct. Then, with the kind of careful decisiveness that only someone unfamiliar with human customs, but fully committed to learning them could muster, she leaned in. Her forehead touched mine gently, and I could feel the warmth of her skin, the soft hum of her breathing, the faint pulse of her glow. I laughed softly at the absurdity of it all, me, forehead to forehead with a 7-foot alien janitor, safe in the middle of a ship under emergency conditions. "I have misunderstood human bonding," she admitted quietly. "I assumed physical cleansing was required. But I understand now. Proximity, conversation, these are your preferences." I nodded, reaching out carefully to take her hand. "Exactly. And I like it. The way it is." Her glow dimmed slightly, then flared again with a bright, almost delighted pulse. "Then I will limit scrubbing to actual contamination emergencies. But may I still maintain contact?" "You may," I said, feeling a warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with her radiant skin. "As long as it's not bubble bath level intensive." Her lips, or what I assumed were lips, given the anatomy I was only starting to understand, curved upward slightly. "Acknowledged. Emotional contact protocol adjusted." And then she grinned. Just a little. But her grin was enough to make my stomach flip. The next morning, as I tried to navigate the corridors with a cup of recycled coffee, she appeared out of nowhere again. I braced myself, ready for full scrub mode. Instead, she smiled, holding a small towel in one hand, hovering nearby, but not advancing aggressively. "Slight smudge detected on shoulder," she announced softly. "Would you permit correction?" I chuckled, shaking my head. "Only if it's optional." Her eyes sparkled, brighter than I thought possible. "Optional acknowledged. Initiating minimal contact protocol." She lightly brushed my shoulder with the towel, careful, precise, and somehow tender. The absurdity of it made me laugh. The warmth of it made me melt inside. This alien janitor, who had once tackled me like I was a biohazard, had become something else entirely, someone I wanted near me. And just as I thought I was finally safe, she glanced down at my boots. "Slight debris accumulation detected," she murmured, reaching out again. I groaned, laughing helplessly. "I give up." "Fine, correct it." She smiled triumphantly, sweeping me off my feet in a gentle but insistent embrace. I surrendered completely, realizing that rules, hygiene protocols, and ship emergencies didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was her warmth, and the ridiculous, beautiful, chaotic way she cared. And as she carried me down the corridor, still glowing and still brimming with obsessive dedication, I realized something important. I didn't just accept her quirks, I needed them. Every scrub, every hover, every unnecessary precaution had become a comfort, a sign of affection that transcended culture, species, and sanity. She was my janitor, my guardian, my chaos incarnate. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Even if she continued scrubbing me tomorrow.